What is up, YouTube? Welcome to this new time lapse of EU4 and 128.3. In Golden Century again, this time in Ottoman run, as I teased a bit in the Papal run time lapse. We're using the same concept of a reduction, but with the Ottomans, a bit different because we're a different religion. I tried to go Orthodox first, but I don't think that the cost for going Orthodox is worth going Orthodox. It's not for this kind of thing. So Orthodox have vigorous expansion reduction in as Saint Nicholas as an icon, but the Muslims also has it as a scholar from the Hanbali school, which is the school of Najd in Dawasir. The Ottomans can not vassalize, but ally Najd at the start, eventually vassalize them when they get close enough. The main thing is the distance that prevents it from being vassalized at the start. It's fast enough that if you do it on day one, by the time you attack and eat Byzantium, you'll have the scholar. Now, it costs 50 admin every 30 years, so compared to St. Nicholas, it's a bit more costly, but it's admin points. The Ottomans don't exactly struggle on that. So beyond that, I'll go through the ideas at the end like usual, but beyond that, it's a normal war conquest idea, so I guess I'm just gonna go through whatever we did. It lets us go on Europe a bit faster. Eventually, we'll reach a point where we'll have Naples as a subject and we'll threaten for Siena for them, which was just a claim, 27 development in the middle of Europe. And after that, only Austria had like 2 aggressive expansion on us. So, pretty big. Yeah, I was still doing the subject thing since we're taking influence anyways. So, the Syria thing is a big one for those who don't know. When you attack AQ will have Raqqa, right? You can full annex them, but release Raqqa as a free nation. Since it's going to be an OPM and you're going to just have released them, all you have to do is ally them and they'll want to be your subject. So you do that free of A, and then after that that gives you conquest on everything else. This is in QQ if nothing changed. In my case, the Mamluks had taken it from QQ, so everything was in the Mamluks. Reconquest, all this is basically the whole CB the first time. It's super cheap. Don't forget to take their trade power though, because a lot of your money comes with the Aleppo node. So if you don't do that, you're gonna hurt on money. Beyond that, we decided to rush on Persia as much as we can. It's a lot of the money for the Ottomans. So first the Aleppo node, as I just explained, but then after that, the Persian node. Of course, we're going to do our missions first, so that's why we're doing this here. As you see, we took Transylvania. Transylvania is in Constantinople. That's also important. Yeah, Diplovassalize, all our or slots, which eventually will be 7, are all subjects. No allies. The Ottomans don't need that really. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Moldavia, as you see, was a subject. We just annexed it. We didn't get Crimea. The free event gives Crimea. We didn't get it. Eventually we'll Diplovassalize Crimea again and refeed them everything. We'll go stop Muscovy from forming Russia. For a tidbit, for those who don't know, Muscovy needs either the province of Ryazan or the province of Smolensk, besides getting everything they need Muscovy, which they already have. They need Novgorod, which they usually get, and then after that they need either Smolensk or Ryazan. Now they had Ryazan here, so what I did is Diplovassalize what was left of Ryazan and then Reconquest. So you'll see Ryazan getting back. And then they take Smolensk, so I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So I'll go get Smolensk in a minute. And then, just to make sure, we'll block him here. Like that. And now Russia can't form, so I let them live here for a while we did everything else. At this point, we're rushing on the Muslims. Because it's easier for stability in our case, because we are Muslim. And again, Persia. We'll be at the door of India for a while. We didn't go there anytime soon. And it's going to lead into a problem that you'll see eventually. France and Portugal will be taking a huge chunk of India, which will limit our ability in the end, and this is why I didn't finish a war conquest. It could have been a war conquest if I did things a bit differently. But, yeah. We'll eventually go to Ming and all of that, as you'll see. It could have been a war conquest, as I said. I could have finished it. Even this run here, the way it ended, could have led to a war conquest, but I didn't feel like doing the last bit. I already have the achievement, so it's not like I'm stressed to do it. I'm pressed to do it. So yeah, now at this point we're just pushing. This is not me, by the way, this is Hanover. He was emperor for a while. Just to make it clear, the main thing that made me decide to not finish is because you'll see eventually, soonish, Great Britain has Canada and the 13 colonies, right? But they'll release them for some reason. And, well, as you know, when you annex a nation that has colonial nations, you inherit their colonial nations. But this happening, the United States and Canada were more than 2 wars each. So that was like 4 wars, so roughly 40 years, 20 years extra just because of that. It's a bit frustrating. So as you can see, France takes this, Portugal takes this. Now they'll lose a bit, both. But yeah, it's a bit annoying. But yeah, the point is this idea build working for world conquest? I would say definitely. Even better than usual. The main thing is that you'd always take influence in the past for subjects, and then the Eager's expansion was in it. And the Eager's expansion is not in influence anymore. Is influence still valuable? I say yes. But I'd take espionage first. Because espionage has 2 things for war conquest. Slightly maybe 3. But first, the Eager's expansion, which is larger than what it was with influence. It's 20% now instead of 15. Second, it has corruption reduction in the idea group itself, but then also the a policy with admin, which you'll take if you do war conquest, for another corruption reduction modifier, which can be important in the end game. At that point here, I'm making over 1,000 ducats after paying for like 300 ducats a month for the full corruption from territories. So it's not important in the end game, the corruption thing, but in the mid game, if you're doing things fast enough, you'll have a lot of corruption from territories without having the full income of half the planet. So having the policies could help too. And then on top of that, claims, until you get imperialism, claims are super cheap and fast to get. So you have faster spy network, and your claims are cheaper. So it makes it easier to train your wars. Also, it's easier, or like either it's easier to get your first claim to get a CB and go in, or if you need to wait because you're doing something else, it lets you have more claims because you're harder to discover as well. So in this case, saving your dip points. In this case, then making influence slightly less valuable in the sense of unjustified demands. But for the subjects, it's still pretty big. Because since you're going to take admin, you're going to have the policy for annexation costs, plus the annexation costs from influence, and then take your parliament, especially with the Ottomans. In the Ottomans, you already have a +5 max absolutism with your government type. So just to explain, you usually need 2 sources of +5. So you need +10 in special ways to get 100 absolutism nowadays, because you'll get 90 as the monarchy, no matter what. So you get a 10. You need a 10 somewhere. Usually you'll get the 2 reforms that are the royal decree and political absolutism, which are this and this. But because the Ottoman government has +5 absolutism, Then I skipped the royal decree and took the parliament, which helps for world conquest, would help, and because you always will have the debate for 15%. Diplo annexation cost, just a bit. By the way, this always appears if you have at least 2 subjects. If you only have 1 subject, it's not going to appear, so don't look for it. But if you have 2 subjects and it doesn't appear, one thing that a lot of people don't know is you can re-roll the debate by just letting them untick. So you're going to pay a bit of corruption, because there's corruption if you don't have if there's no debate in the parliament. But let them untick, and then the choice of debates will just re-roll themselves. And if you have 2 subjects, eventually you'll get the one you need here. You could also have the missionary if you want to convert. In our case, we didn't convert much, really, as you can see. So, because Ottomans. So, in terms of ideas, for those who didn't check the Papal Ace build, it's the same kind of thing, except we didn't go religious, we went humanist. Both will help with AE in a different way. The religious will have the CB, which reduces AE by 25%. Humanist has improved relations, so which will decay it. So you get a little bit more on taking stuff, but then it decays faster. But the crux of it is espionage, which is 20% here. You have the 10 from prestige, that's 30, and then in our case here we have the scholar from the Am Valley School, which is another 10. So that's 40% reduction. Sometimes you'll get the 20% from the influence event, or cause is just. So yeah, with this build I'd always go quality when you need to get the military idea group in the start when you have too many points. Quality is pretty good because it gives you the Deserter Act, which on top of quality being +1 army tradition, you get a -1 here. At 100 army tradition, it's the same value. So another bit for new players, the difference between well, it's the same thing with prestige, but it's more important for army tradition. The difference between a gain of an army tradition, like the +1 here, and a reduction in the decay, unless you can cap the 100, this is at same values, so +1 or -1 per decay. The +1 is more valuable than the decay, although eventually you'll run out of sources for +1, so you'll want decay. At 100 is the same value, because, well, 1% of 100 is 1. But if you have like 50, +1 is still +1, but 1% of 50 is 0.5. So you want these first at same value. Otherwise, you'll get the decay. So anyway, the point is, this is extra army tradition. This is the best military policy that I found for espionage, but there might be mercenary things. I don't look at mercenary things because I'm not interested in them. The humanist for unrest mainly, because, well, Ottomans have the tolerance here. So with this, it means that Heathens are always tolerated, and then for Shias, for a while you just convert them, eventually I just stop caring. Then influence, as I explained, because subjects. Admin, because war conquest. Diplo for war conquest, because of the province war score, but you also have a bit more improved relations. And then beyond that, it was just stuff for war conquest, so usually I take offensive for the siege ability. Just to give you an idea of improved relations. Is it called improved relations? We have 123%. It's more 125 if we didn't have overextension right now, although you'll probably always have overextension. So 50 because of full prestige. Okay, we have 20% because we have a diplomat, 25 from benign diplomats, which is from diplomacy, and 30% benevolence from humanist. So that's the AE build here. It works. It's pretty good. Main thing it works is because admin is, it's not, you're not getting out of your way. The only thing is you're putting diplomacy a bit later. That's pretty much it. Because admin is not out of the way because it's a policy with espionage. Quality with espionage is good. So you're not moving out of your way to get espionage. I would still take it first. So the difference between building for improved relations versus building for AE reduction is if you build for AE reduction itself, you want it as early as possible. Because there is no point of not having AE reduction like 100 years and building like 300 degrees expansion with everyone around you, and then getting a less AE reduction. And then getting less AE because you're taking espionage as third, say. If you're going to build for AE reduction, I would suggest taking it as early as possible. Always have your scholar in the case of the Muslims, and take espionage first. Espionage, also, anyways, it's an early game idea group because of claims. Eventually, once you have imperialism, or if you have this vault, which religious, the claims becomes less relevant. So it would make this and this less relevant, but yeah, anyway, you do it the way you want. These are just my tidbits. Guys, the next build, the next run, we're already playing it. It's Vijayanagar. I'm making a build for Vassal Force Limit. Pretty strong from what I've seen so far. Why Vijayanagar? With Dharma DLC. Vijayanagar has its own government system, which gives Vassal Force Limit, and plus other tidbits that I'll just leave for the time lapse of the Vijayanagar. But basically, it's 1530, and we own 80% of India already. Pretty good. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe or follow on Twitch if you're here for the first time. There will be links in the description below. I will be live right after this goes online for those who are interested. Stream every day, about 12 hours a day. I will see you later, guys. Bye-bye.